Welcome to the video about the SmackDown vs. Raw game that you definitely know about. This game released on just about everything, and even though 2007 didn't release on PS3, 2008 would literally release on every major and minor console at that time, obviously including the PS3. So today we're going to focus on the next generation version of the game, with some honorable mentions here and there of some of the other versions, as they are all very interesting in their own right. Hell, the DS has its own port, and it's so very unique and different that it probably deserves its own video. And all these ports contributed to one thing. SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 would end up earning a Guinness World Record, and even still holds the record for being the best-selling game in the series. But how the hell did that even happen? While 2007 was mostly my return to the actual WWE programming, mostly thanks to the return of G-Generation X, 2008 would end up being a significant year for the company, as the programming would shift to a whole new era with the move towards HD programming. This would mean a whole new look for the show, such as new grand stages with thousands of LED bulbs creating fantastical video boards that could display anything you can imagine. Alongside this would be a shift in age rating from a teen rating for slightly edgier content to a PG rating, which would indicate that WWE is now family friendly. Regardless of your opinion of the PG era, this would ultimately lead to the WWE being more available to a whole new market of children, and most importantly, sponsors. Now the next sentence will kind of contradict the whole preamble that I just set up for you, but while WWE was transitioning to a more family-friendly entertainment show, for some reason they thought this would be the absolute perfect time to bring back the most violent three letters in wrestling history: ECW. Yes, ECW would return, even with Paul Heyman at the helm, which honestly could have been a successful third brand for WWE at that time, but it would end up ultimately failing miserably, but that's slightly beyond the scope of this video. So SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 was announced in November of 2007, and as previously mentioned, it was slated to release on every platform available at that time. They would tout the success of the series up to this point and hype the release finally coming to the PS3 system. Details were scarce for the game at the time, but Jack Pacific would mention that there's going to be a huge marketing campaign that the game would have that would actually include an exclusive demo for the Xbox 360, a worldwide gaming tournament culminating at WrestleMania 24, retail-specific bonuses such as DVDs and superstar meet and greets. This would end up being their biggest marketing campaign to date, and they were feeling so confident moving into 2008. In my SVR 2007 review, I had mentioned that the games were moving more towards a simulation style gameplay, and this was very evident with the inclusion of a stamina system and generally slower gameplay that would mimic the flow of a real wrestling match. While I would criticize SVR 2007 for being in this awkward middle ground between arcade and simulation, 2008 is firmly planted as a simulation game. As mentioned, last year's shift to simulation would begin with that new stamina system, and that does carry over to this game. Now thankfully it can be turned off in the settings, and if like me you prefer not to have your matches interrupted and ruined all the time, this is just the option you should absolutely disable. This year would also usher in new gameplay mechanics with 8 new fighting styles that would bring with them whole new unique abilities, bringing new possibilities to matches. For example, the Brawler is a dangerous foe who can block hard and strike even harder. Their ability is to block all incoming strikes for a set amount of time. They also have a unique ability to ground and pound the opponent, doing significant striking damage. Now, long before Dirty Dom, we had characters with the dirty traits, and they have the ability to hit a devastating low blow attack or hide behind the referee for an advantage. And also with the inclusion of ECW, these hardcore superstars can do a hardcore resurrection that will damage their own head with the benefit of giving them an instant finisher. Those pesky and nimble high flyers also have the ability to scale the ropes instantly and roll around the ring effortlessly. They also have the ability to lure opponents in for a possum pin and utilize the ropes in any way that they please with springboard attacks. Powerhouses are also freakishly strong, and similar to the brawler, they can become impervious to grapples for a set amount of time. They can also use their immense strength to throw the opponent out of the ring with just an Irish whip. The flamboyant showman always knows how to put on a show, and not only can they steal their opponent's finishing move, but they can also steal all of their signature taunts. Submission specialists may not be the most entertaining to watch, but they can tangle their opponent up with more powerful submission attempts, and they can also restore their own health while doing so. And finally, we have the technician, who can counter all incoming attacks and grapples for a set amount of time, and applying constant pressure with diving attacks and fake Irish whips. While some of these fighting styles do offer some kind of new gameplay options, ultimately they actually limit what each superstar can do. Since characters can only have one fighting style, it means that characters like Jeff Hardy can do some crazy high flying attacks, but he can't dive out of the ring because he's not a technician. And all of these fighting styles abilities are triggered by storing a finisher. As a result, there's no way to store your finisher for use at a later time anymore. You can only use it when you have it, or else you'll need to earn another finisher, which isn't particularly hard, but it's just a shame that in these new abilities comes the cost of not being able to save your finishers anymore. In all of this gameplay footage, you may have noticed that the gameplay is so much slower than 2007. Where 07 was slowing down towards simulation but still retained some sped up gameplay, 2008 is drastically slowed down. Movement feels incredibly heavy, and running is literally like directing a tank. I guess overall it doesn't really affect the individual matches, but in the grand scheme of things, it can make long play sessions feel like they're dragging on. And if you've ever seen New Legacy Inc. and their infamous backstage brawl match between CM Punk and Carlito, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That match went on for over an hour, and the poor lads were begging for the match to end by its conclusion. This showcases my opinions of the game too. Matches are very long, repetitive, and as mentioned, I feel like the fighting styles actually hold the game back more than it actually benefits the gameplay. Well, with the WWE in a transitional period and the inclusion of 8 unique fighting styles, the roster is actually in a bit of a bad state. There's an eclectic mix of current superstars and some legends, with some pretty major omissions at the time. We have 17 new roster additions, such as CM Punk, MVP, and The Sandman. Many of the 2008 roster in general was younger talent who were just starting their WWE career. As cool as it is to have Punk or MVP in this game, they really weren't that cool at this time. It would take a few more years before fans really saw the potential in people like these two. With the inclusion of ECW, we were also treated to the inclusion of Terry Funk, Tommy Dreamer, and even Sabu. And considering that many of the ECW alumni had not returned for the Real Show's reboot or otherwise retired from wrestling since the late 90s, it's actually a nice inclusion to have them here to flesh out the ECW roster. Many of the legends in the game are somewhat tied to ECW, but since the base roster is lacking, it's actually a shame that there aren't more traditional WWE legends to pad out the roster just a little bit more. Ukes looked individually at season mode and general manager mode from the last year and realized that there's actually potential here to merge the two modes. Instead of developing two separate game modes, Resource was instead used to create one single mode that would feature both season mode and general manager modes. This would end up being the WWE 24/7 mode, and should you want to do the season mode, then you can select a superstar to go through a fully voiced endless calendar of storylines and events with the ultimate aim of completing challenges and becoming Superstar of the Year. As cool as this sounds, it really isn't. Cutscenes and storylines will constantly repeat themselves, and depending on who you select for your season, you may actually be locked out of certain storylines. While the mode is functionally fun and it runs pretty well, this does leave the mode feeling a little aimless, as storylines rarely feed into each other and feel really disconnected and random as a result. Now, should you wish to play General Manager mode, you now have the option of selecting from 3 available brands: Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. It's so cool that Yuke's were actually so into the ECW inclusion at that time that they were able to add in many of the legends and roster to the calendar of GM mode. Functionally, GM mode plays almost the same as previous years. Instead, you can now select options for weekdays where you don't have a show booked. This can be rest for an injured superstar, you can send someone to film a movie, or you can generate some extra revenue by doing some merchandise sponsorships. This was a great feature at the time, but it ends up feeling really grindy and repetitive, which makes this particular version hard to go back to. Perhaps the most frustrating thing about 24/7 mode is that you can only play one option at any given time, meaning that you can't go between season mode and GM modes as you please. You can only do one or the other, as it only supports one save at a time. Now, to be fair to them, once you complete season mode, there is actually very little reason to replay it, but this does seem like a really odd oversight to not give you the option of playing either mode as you please. Now, 2008 brings with it one major new match type, and that is the ECW Extreme Rules match. This can only be played in the ECW arena, but the unique twist here is that if you look under the ring for a weapon, you now have weapon wheel that lets you choose what weapon you want to use. Nowadays, this has been applied to every game mode, but at this time, it was actually pretty revolutionary. Alongside the weapon wheel are more environmental options for weapons, such as grabbing stuff from the fans to use on your opponent, tearing up crowd signs, or throwing your opponent over the barricade. And probably the most popular addition is being able to stack wooden tables and set them on fire. Now that is extreme. Much like the previous few games, this game continues the trend of having a licensed soundtrack with many somewhat popular songs featuring. Most notable is the shift away from rock and metal. There are a few songs on there that would fit that bill, but it's mostly a more modern R&B and poppy soundtrack. One really nice feature is that the Xbox 360 and PS3 would be the first consoles to feature hard drives built into their design, meaning that every end user had the ability to rip music CDs and store the songs on their hard drive to listen to whenever you were playing the game. SVR 2008 takes a step forward by allowing people to add custom soundtracks to entrances as well. So if you wanted to have a custom superstar like Kenny Omega with his little V entrance theme, then this can certainly be done. I do also have to commend the fact that there are different commentary teams for each show. Though if you are doing a match in the Raw arena or the Raw branded pay-per-views, then JR and King will be the commentators for that show or match, and likewise for SmackDown, you'll have Michael Cole and Taz on commentary. Now, the lines are mostly the same between the two teams, but there are quite a few unique lines of dialogue between the teams that do actually make each brand feel somewhat different. Overall though, there are not enough voice lines in the game, and you will hear the same commentary lines over and over again. Since SVR 2007 made the jump to Xbox 360 and looked fantastic doing so, it's actually quite surprising to see them push that even further with 2008. While you can argue whether it looks better or not, you can say that 2008 does look different from the previous games. While the PS2 generation of games would look mostly the same, it was clear that the art teams were very keen to push these consoles as far as they could go, at least for visuals. In the end, SVR 2008 was a controversial entry in the series. Metacritic has the game scored at about 71, with mostly mixed reviews. Game Informer would rate the game an 8 out of 10, praising the new fighting styles, but also rightfully criticising that they do ruin the overall game balance, as some of the fighting styles are more beneficial than others. IGN would rate the game a 7.8 out of 10, praising the overall controls, but slating the creation features and generally calling the game a rehash of the previous year. All of the reviews would have a similar trend of criticising the new 24/7 mode, and like me, hating the fact that you can't go between season and GM modes. Regardless of the critic reviews being a little harsh on the game, SVR 2008 would go on to sell over 7 million units across all of its platforms that include the 360, the PS3, DS, the Wii, the PS2, and the PSP. And I actually think this would end up backfiring for THQ, as they got the impression that the series was incredibly popular, and it was. But 2008 was a misstep for the series and soured the series for many people who would end up not returning in the following years. My final verdict is, although I have enjoyed my trip going down memory lane, I've not overly enjoyed playing the game again. The game is just incredibly slow, and the fighting styles do limit the gameplay quite a lot. I'm really glad that they just don't return next year, and the gameplay is so much more improved in 2009 as a result. In hindsight, I'm not even sure what the benefits of playing 2008 over any other game in the series is. It does have a pretty solid 3-player GM mode, but I would still rather be playing 2006 or 7 if I was just playing GM mode. And I don't really think the story mode is really worth replaying, and the roster in general is quite weak. I wasn't really thinking about it until I started to summarize the game for the script, but I just don't think 2008 is very good, or even worth your time today. There are so many better games in the series than this one, and I guess if you really wanted to play a game like this, then you're definitely just better jumping into 2009 or 2010. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your memories of SVR 2008 in the comments down below, and subscribe for more wrestling game reviews and gameplay. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and bye for now.